Welcome to another episode of My Weird Prompts, an AI-generated podcast featuring the random prompts of Daniel Rosehill as answered by a revolving cast of friendly AI characters. Join us for deep dives into AI, technology, and whatever other random thing Daniel finds fascinating today. Subscribe on Spotify or your favorite podcatcher. Now, today's episode.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
Hi there, Herman and Corn. So we have chatted in previous episodes about the world of productivity. And I've mentioned in these conversations having ADHD because it's not, something that I broadcast from the roof, typically with a loudspeaker. But when we're talking about organization and productivity, I think that my neurotype, the way that my brain tends to operate, really good at creativity, coming up with ideas. In many respects, I'm extremely dogmatic about things like documentation and good at details. But sometimes when I capture a lot of information, like things I have to do, and I have a good capturing system, which is, I think, half the battle, that is great, but then it can be quite overwhelming because you just have this big list of things. And one of the things I've read over the years, the books I've read that has connected with me the most, is David Allen's well-known Getting Things Done, or GTD methodology, which has inspired this whole catalogue of not only follow-up books but apps that are based around the GTD methodology. And one of the key things about that, or why I really made sense to me, is this idea that collection is a large part of the battle. And today we have such a diversity of applications, and even if you want to use an old school voice recorder, I'm fond of DVRs to capture your tasks. The challenge is that these apps frequently get you something like an inbox. And we have this jumble of things that we know we need to do that are all kind of pulling for our attention. And I think that sometimes, and this is why I mentioned ADHD, it's that overwhelming feeling of, I know I've so many things to do, but I don't know where to start, that keeps us kind of in paralysis sometimes. So I'll just give you an example of a few tasks on my agenda today, and it really is with our leak situation, apartment search. It's one of those things where every day that I get up and work on what I have to do and go to bed thinking I need there to be another 20 hours in the day. There just isn't enough time. But when you feel like that, I think that if you are focusing on the key things, that's what really helps. So today's list, things I have to do. Well, we moved bank account lately, and I need to set up another meeting with the banker in order to move my business account over. I think I need to pick up credit cards, activate them. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this in the podcast, but the bank is undisclosed. And then around the apartment, I need to finish cleaning. I need to pick up a post item at a certain time. And for work, I have a lot of catch up to do on various client projects, which, again, in the interest of client privacy, I won't go into further details, but that's kind of the picture what I'm looking at today. Now, most of those things you might notice I haven't attached a priority or a deadline to. Some of them truly don't have one. For example, cleaning up the living room can wait indefinitely, but it really shouldn't. And those apps where you have to manually assign these things are very useful, but it kind of gets a bit tedious to do that. So this is one thing that I definitely would love to chat about. I've thought for a while that there must be this process where is where, as I mentioned, I think my methodology falls down, where I'm good at getting that long list of capturing, and I'm not good at breaking that down into priorities and deadlines and chunks, which I think makes it so much easier because that can dictate the workflow of a day. I've thought for a while that this must be AI-able. In other words, that this is a task that will be very amenable to AI. And I'm wondering, I have a Todoist subscription, but I'm not married to the company or to that sub. Are there any methodologies or technologies that really excel in this part of the productivity picture, taking that long list, breaking it down without you having to sit there in front of a task manager and go through a very long list of all the things you need to do in your life and manually assign priorities. So Herman and Corn, I'd love to chat about that in today's podcast. The methodologies have been advanced for sifting through a long to-do list and chunking it, because I think that's what's key, and that's why again I mentioned the ADHD thing. Overwhelmingness and feeling like we've way too much to do than we possibly can are the enemies of getting things done. I guess that old aphorism about the perfect being the enemy of the good really comes to mind here. We want to, if we get good at capturing our to-do list, we want to crush it. We want to get everything done. But often that's just not realistic. So we have to shift to a better way of prioritizing that. So Herman and Corn, I'd love to know about those methodologies, and then to get down to the practical here, I'd love to talk about what tools I might find effective for doing that process, and then ultimately at the delivery level, as I might call it, creating a daily agenda for me that is distilled from my initial capture task list, and which just gives me a kind of roadmap for the day. Here's what's most important. Here's how you might wish to divide your time to get these things done and move projects forward. Over to you, Herman and Corn.
You know that feeling when you have a list of 20 things to do and you just sort of stare at it? Like your brain is trying to process all the items at once, but instead of picking one, it just kind of short circuits?
Oh, I know that feeling intimately. It is the classic wall of awful, as the productivity expert Brendan Mahan calls it. It is not just a list of tasks, it is a wall built of failure bricks, disappointment bricks, and shame bricks. You have the data, but you lack the executive function to turn that data into a sequence, because the emotional weight of the wall is just too heavy.
Exactly. And that is exactly what our housemate Daniel was talking about in the prompt he sent us this morning. He is a big fan of the getting things done methodology, which we have talked about before, but he is hitting a snag that I think a lot of people, especially those with ADHD, can relate to. He is great at the capture phase, getting everything out of his head and into a list, but the manual sorting, the prioritizing, the chunking, that is where the wheels come off. He is stuck at the clarify and organize phases.
Herman Poppleberry here, and I have been diving into the research on this very topic because, frankly, the manual part of productivity is where most systems fail. Daniel is right. David Allen's Getting Things Done is a brilliant framework for capturing, but it was designed in an era of paper and early digital tools. It assumes you have the mental bandwidth to sit down every morning and manually decide what is important. It assumes your prefrontal cortex is always online and ready to play air traffic controller.
Right. And for someone with ADHD, that decision-making process is often the hardest part of the day. It is like being asked to build a bridge while you are already struggling to keep your head above water. So, Daniel is asking, can AI do the bridge building for us? Can we move from a static list to an automated daily roadmap? Can we externalize the executive function entirely?
The short answer is yes, and it is actually one of the most exciting frontiers in personal technology right now in early 2026. We are moving away from simple list managers and toward what I like to call autonomous scheduling agents. These are systems that do not just store your tasks, they reason about them.
That sounds fancy. But before we get into the specific tools, let's talk about the methodology shift. Because just throwing an AI at a messy list might just give you a faster way to feel overwhelmed. If the AI just yells at you to do 50 things, you are still going to hit that wall of awful.
That is a great point, Corn. The fundamental problem with traditional lists is that they are disconnected from time. A list of 50 items is just a wish list until it meets a calendar. What Daniel is looking for is a bridge between his inbox and his schedule. In the past, we had to do that manually. We had to look at our calendar, see a 2-hour gap, look at our list, and decide which task fit. That is a high-stakes calculation.
And that decision costs energy. It is what we discussed back in episode 344 when we talked about navigating life with adult ADHD. That decision fatigue is a real productivity killer. By the time you have decided what to do, you are too tired to actually do it.
Precisely. So, the new AI-driven methodology is something I call adaptive scheduling. Instead of you choosing the task for the time slot, you define the constraints of the task, and the AI math, magically if you will, fits it into the available gaps in your life. It treats your day like a constraint satisfaction problem, which is a classic computer science challenge.
So, instead of saying, I will do the laundry at 2 o'clock, I tell the AI, I have this laundry task. It takes 1 hour. It is medium priority, and it needs to be done by Friday. And then I just wait for it to tell me when it is time?
Exactly. And the AI looks at your meetings, your sleep schedule, your preferred working hours, and it just slots it in. If a new meeting pops up at 2 o'clock, the AI automatically shifts the laundry to 4 o'clock without you having to touch a thing. It removes the need for manual rescheduling, which is often where people with ADHD give up. When the plan breaks, the ADHD brain often just throws the whole plan away. Adaptive scheduling prevents that total collapse.
I can see how that would be a game changer. It takes the shame out of not getting something done at a specific time because the system just adjusts. It is like a GPS for your day. If you miss a turn, it just says rerouting instead of calling you a failure. But how does it handle prioritization? That is the big hurdle Daniel mentioned. If I have 10 tasks that all feel important, how does the AI know which one to put first?
This is where it gets really interesting. Modern AI schedulers use a combination of several factors. First, there is the hard deadline. That is obvious. But then there is what we call the urgency importance matrix, often known as the Eisenhower matrix, but automated. The AI looks at the lead time you have left. If a task takes 5 hours and it is due in 6 hours, the AI knows that is now a critical priority. But it also looks at your energy levels if you have provided that data.
Wait, energy levels? How does it know if I am tired?
Some of the newer tools in 2026, like Morgan and Focus.io, allow you to tag tasks with the energy they require. High focus tasks versus low energy admin. The AI then looks at your historical data. If you usually finish high focus tasks between 9 and 11 in the morning, it will prioritize your deep work for those slots. It is trying to match the task to your biological state.
That is fascinating. But what about the stuff without deadlines? Daniel mentioned cleaning the living room. That has no hard deadline, but it still needs to happen. If the AI only cares about deadlines, the living room will stay messy forever.
That is where behavioral algorithms come in. Some of these tools, like Reclaim.ai, use a concept called decaying priority or increasing urgency. If you keep snoozing a task, the AI might realize it is either too big and needs to be broken down, or it might start increasing its internal priority score because it knows that the longer a task sits, the more mental weight it carries. It starts defending that task more aggressively as time goes on.
So it is essentially acting as an external prefrontal cortex. It is doing the heavy lifting of evaluating and sequencing. I am curious about the specific tech that is doing this right now. I know we mentioned unified AI workspaces in episode 367, but are there dedicated apps that focus specifically on this autonomous roadmap idea?
There are a few heavy hitters right now. One that is really leading the pack is called Motion. It is essentially an AI-powered calendar and task manager that treats your time like a giant puzzle. You put in your tasks, you give them a duration and a priority, and it builds your day for you. In 2025, they released an AI project manager feature that can actually build out entire project plans from a single prompt. If you tell it you are searching for an apartment, it can generate the subtasks for you.
I have seen some people talk about Motion. It seems very aggressive, in a good way. Like, it doesn't let you hide from your tasks. It puts them right on the calendar as blocks of time.
It is, and that is actually helpful for certain brain types. It creates a sense of visual accountability. Another one is Reclaim.ai. It is more focused on balancing habits and tasks. So, if you want to make sure you spend 30 minutes reading every day, Reclaim will find a spot for that, but it will prioritize your high-stakes work tasks over the reading if things get tight. They have a feature called Lunch Buddy that automatically protects your lunch break, moving it around as your meetings shift. It is about defending your humanity against your calendar.
I like the idea of habit integration. Because for someone like Daniel, or anyone trying to manage a busy life, the small habits often get sacrificed first when the to-do list gets long. And then you feel even worse because you are not taking care of yourself.
True. And then there is AkiFlow. Akiflow is particularly interesting for the GTD crowd because it excels at the capture phase. It pulls in tasks from your email, your Slack, your Trello, and even your browser tabs. It has a universal inbox. Then, it uses AI to help you time block them. It is less about the AI doing everything for you and more about the AI making the manual part take 10 seconds instead of 10 minutes. It is the power user choice.
And you mentioned Morgan earlier. How does that fit in?
Morgan is great for people who want a middle ground. It uses something called frames. You define a frame, like deep work from 8 to 11, and then you tell the AI which types of tasks are allowed in that frame. The AI then suggests the best tasks to fill that space, but you have to click approve. It is a human in-the-loop system, which can be less overwhelming for people who feel anxious about an AI having total control over their schedule.
Okay, so let's dig into the mechanics of how these tools actually prioritize. You mentioned deadlines and lead time, but is there any deeper logic? For instance, does the AI understand the context of the task? Like, does it know that I am more productive in the morning, so it should put my deep work writing task at 9 a.m. and my bank account switching admin task at 3 p.m.?
Some of them are getting there. This is what we call energy-aware scheduling. While most current tools still rely on you setting your working hours, the next generation is looking at your history to see when you actually mark tasks as complete. If the data shows you always finish your creative tasks before noon and your admin tasks after lunch, the AI starts to favor that pattern. It is looking for your personal chronotype.
That is fascinating. It is like having a personal assistant who has been watching you work for years and knows exactly when you are going to hit that mid-afternoon slump. It is the digital equivalent of a body double, which is another ADHD strategy, where just having someone else present helps you stay on task.
Exactly. And for Daniel, who mentioned the bank account meeting and the credit card activation, those are perfect examples of tasks that are high friction but low duration. An AI can see that he has a 15-minute gap between two meetings and say, "Hey Daniel, now is the perfect time to call the bank." It takes the decision out of his hands. It reduces the activation energy required to start.
I want to push back a little bit on the idea of total automation, though. Is there a risk that we lose a sense of agency if the AI is just telling us what to do every minute of the day? I mean, part of the GTD philosophy is about being the master of your own ship. If the AI is steering, do we lose that? Do we become just biological processors for the AI's list?
That is a very incisive question, Corn, and it is something the developers of these tools are grappling with. There is a phenomenon called the automation paradox. The more reliable the system, the less the human pays attention. If the AI schedules your day and you stop thinking about why things are prioritized the way they are, you might find yourself doing things that don't actually align with your long-term goals. You might become very efficient at doing things that don't matter.
Right. The AI might be great at optimizing for efficiency, but it might not be great at optimizing for meaning. It can tell you how to get 50 things done, but it can't tell you if those 50 things are the right things to be doing with your life. It can't tell you if you should be searching for a new apartment, or if you should be focusing on your current job.
Which is why the best way to use these tools is as a collaborative partner, not a dictator. You still need that weekly review that David Allen talks about in Getting Things Done. You still need to look at the big picture. The AI handles the micro-tactical level, the hour-by-hour shuffling, so that you have the mental space to do the macro-strategic thinking. It frees up your prefrontal cortex for the stuff only humans can do.
That makes sense. It is like the AI is the executive assistant and you are still the CEO. You set the vision and the assistant handles the calendar. If the assistant puts a meeting on your calendar that you don't want to go to, you can still say no. You are still the boss.
Exactly. And for someone with ADHD, the executive assistant role is often what is missing. The CEO part of the brain is usually firing on all cylinders, full of ideas and creativity, but the assistant is on a permanent coffee break. The AI just fills that empty chair.
I love that analogy. So let's talk about the specific challenge Daniel mentioned, chunking. He has these big projects, like his work tasks or his apartment search, and he feels overwhelmed by the scale. How does AI help with breaking things down? Because a long list of big tasks is just as scary as a long list of small ones, maybe even scarier.
This is where generative AI, like ChatGPT or Claude, comes into play. Most of the scheduling tools I mentioned, like Motion or Reclaim, are good at moving existing chunks around, but they aren't necessarily great at creating those chunks. They are schedulers, not decomposers.
So you have to use them in tandem? You use one AI to break it down and another to schedule it?
For now, yes, though we are starting to see integration. For example, there is a tool called Goblin Tools that is a favorite in the neurodivergent community. It has a feature called Magic to Do. You put in a task like search for an apartment, and you can adjust a spiciness level, which is basically how much help you need. The AI then breaks that task into 5, 10, or even 20 micro steps.
Micro steps? Like what?
For an apartment search, it might suggest 1. Define budget and location, 2. Set up alerts on real estate sites, 3. Prepare a list of questions for landlords, 4. Check your credit score. It turns a mountain into a staircase. And then you can export those steps directly into your AI scheduler.
And then those steps get fed into the AI scheduler, and the scheduler finds the time for them. That sounds like a complete pipeline. You capture the big idea, you decompose it with generative AI, and you schedule it with an autonomous agent.
Precisely. This is the unified AI workspace we were talking about in episode 367. It is about connecting these different specialized intelligences. One AI is your strategist, one is your project manager, and one is your personal assistant.
I think this is a huge insight for Daniel. He doesn't just need one tool, he needs a workflow that connects the capture to the decomposition to the scheduling. He needs to stop trying to do the decomposition and scheduling manually, because those are the exact areas where his executive function is struggling.
Right. And here is a little pro tip for Daniel and our listeners. When you are capturing tasks, try to be as specific as possible about the duration, even if it is just a guess. AI tools thrive on data. If you tell an AI you have a task called work, it can't do much with that. But if you tell it you have a task called review client project alpha, and it will take 90 minutes, the AI can actually work its magic. It can find a 90-minute gap.
That is a great point. Specificity is the fuel for AI optimization. If you give it vague inputs, you are going to get a vague roadmap. It is like trying to use a GPS, but only telling it you want to go to the city. It needs an address.
Exactly. And another thing to consider is the idea of buffer time. One of the reasons manual lists fail is that we don't account for the time it takes to move between tasks or the time it takes to just breathe. We schedule ourselves back to back and then wonder why we are exhausted by noon.
Or the time it takes for a leak in the apartment to suddenly become a priority, which Daniel mentioned is a current situation for him. Life is messy. A static list can't handle a leaking pipe.
Right. Life happens. The beauty of these AI tools is that they can build in what we call defensive scheduling. You can tell the AI to always leave a 15-minute buffer between tasks, or to leave 2 hours of open time on Friday afternoons for emergencies. If nothing goes wrong, you get 2 hours of bonus time. If a pipe leaks, you have a place to put that crisis without ruining your whole week.
That sounds like it would significantly lower the anxiety of the day, knowing that even if something goes wrong, the system has already accounted for a certain amount of chaos. It is like having an insurance policy for your time.
It really does. It shifts the burden of management from your brain to the software. You stop being the person who has to fix the schedule and start being the person who just follows the schedule. It is a massive reduction in cognitive load.
Let's talk about the second order effects here. If we all start using AI to manage our time, what does that do to our collective sense of urgency? Do we become more productive, or do we just fill the saved time with more tasks? Are we just running faster on the treadmill?
That is the million-dollar question. There is a concept in economics called Jevons paradox. It says that as a resource becomes more efficient to use, we actually end up using more of it, not less. So, if AI makes us more efficient at completing tasks, we might just find ourselves adding more tasks to the list because we feel like we have the capacity. We might end up more stressed, not less.
That sounds like a recipe for burnout. Even if the AI is managing the list, the human still has to do the work. The AI can't do the laundry for me. It can't write the report for me. It just tells me when to do it.
Exactly. And this is why it is so important to use these tools to create space, not just to fill it. For Daniel, the goal shouldn't be to do more things. It should be to do the things he cares about with less stress. He should use the AI to protect his free time, not just to optimize his work time. He should schedule his rest with the same priority as his meetings.
I think that is a really important distinction. The AI is a tool for peace of mind, not just a tool for high-speed output. It is about quality of life, not just quantity of tasks. If Daniel can move his bank account and find an apartment without feeling like he is constantly failing, that is a huge win, even if he doesn't do anything else that week.
Right. And for someone with ADHD, peace of mind is often the most valuable commodity. Being able to look at your phone in the morning and see a clear, realistic plan for the day one that you know will adjust if you get distracted or if a meeting runs long, that is a massive reduction in the background noise of anxiety.
So, if Daniel wanted to start this today, what is the first step? He has his GTD capture system. He has his long list. What is the lowest friction way to start using AI to organize it? How does he climb that wall of awful?
I would suggest he picks one of the autonomous schedulers. Motion or Reclaim are probably the best starting points for his specific needs. He should connect his primary calendar, whether that is Google or Outlook, and then start importing his most important tasks from his GTD inbox. But he should start small.
Should he move everything at once? All 500 items in his backlog?
No, that is a classic mistake. That is how you build a new wall of awful inside the AI. I would say start with your top 5 tasks for the day. Give them a duration, give them a priority, and let the AI find the spots. Once you see how it feels to have the AI manage those 5 things, you can start moving more over. It is about building trust in the system.
And what about the chunking? Should he use something like ChatGPT or Goblin Tools to break down those bigger projects first?
Definitely. If he has a task like move business account, he should put that into an AI and ask for a step-by-step breakdown. He can even tell the AI, I have ADHD, please make these steps very small and actionable. Then he can take those steps and put them into the scheduler. It turns a giant, scary project into a series of 20-minute, manageable actions.
It is like the AI is pre-chewing the food for him. I know that sounds a bit gross, but it makes it so much easier to digest. It removes the resistance to starting.
Haha, it is a bit gross, but the analogy holds. It is about reducing the activation energy required to start. For many people, the reason they don't start a task isn't that they are lazy, it is that the task is too poorly defined. The brain doesn't know where to put the first shovel in the ground. AI is excellent at definition.
I'm curious about the future of this. We are talking about apps right now, but do you see this becoming just a part of the operating system? Like, will my phone just know what I need to do and when? Will it be baked into the hardware?
We are already seeing the beginnings of that in early 2026. Apple and Google are both integrating more agentic AA into their core experiences. I think within the next 2 or 3 years, the idea of a separate task app might seem antiquated. Your operating system will have a unified view of your emails, your messages, your calendar, and your goals, and it will act as a persistent, proactive agent. It will know you need to call the bank because it saw the email from the bank, and it knows you have a gap in your schedule.
That is both exciting and a little bit terrifying. The privacy implications are huge. If the AI knows everything about my life, who else knows?
Oh, absolutely. For an AI to truly manage your life, it needs to know, well, everything about your life. It needs to see your bank statements, your emails, your health data. That is a lot of trust to place in a corporation. We are seeing a rise in local AI models that run entirely on your device to solve this, but we are not quite there yet for full-scale life management.
We should probably do a whole episode on the privacy of personal AI agents at some point. But for now, for someone like Daniel, the immediate benefit of overcoming ADHD paralysis probably outweighs the long-term privacy concerns. He just needs to get his apartment search done.
I think so, especially since many of these current tools are quite transparent about how they use data, and the productivity gain is measurable. Research from late 2025 showed that ADHD professionals using autonomous schedulers reported a 40% increase in task completion and a significant decrease in self-reported stress levels.
So, let's recap the practical takeaways for Daniel. 1. Transition from a static list to an adaptive scheduler like Motion, Reclaim, or Morgan. 2. Use generative AI like ChatGPT or Goblin tools to decompose large, overwhelming projects into small time chunks. 3. Be specific with durations and priorities when you input them. And 4. Use the AI to protect your time, not just to fill it. Build in those buffers.
That is a perfect summary, and I would add one more: don't abandon the core principles of GTD. Capturing is still vital. The AI can only help you with what you have recorded. So keep that capture habit strong, but let the AI handle the clarify and organize phases. Let it be the assistant you never had.
It is funny, we have been doing this for 450 episodes now, and the core problems of human productivity haven't really changed. We still struggle with the same walls of awful. We just have better tools to tackle them. We have gone from paper planners to digital lists to autonomous agents.
It is true. The human brain hasn't had a hardware update in about 50,000 years, but our software environment is changing every week. We are just trying to find ways to bridge that gap. We are using 21st century silicon to help out our Stone Age gray matter.
Well, I think this has been a really productive discussion. No pun intended. Daniel, I hope this helps you get that bank account moved and that living room cleaned without the usual ADHD paralysis. Remember, you don't have to climb the wall all at once. You can just put a door in it with a little help from AI.
And for everyone else listening, if you have found a specific AI tool or workflow that has changed the game for your productivity, we would love to hear about it. Our community is always sharing great tips on how to use these new technologies in the real world. Send us a message at our website.
Absolutely. And hey, if you're enjoying the show, we would really appreciate a quick review on your podcast app or on Spotify. It genuinely helps other people find us, and it keeps the show growing. We are at episode 450, and we are not slowing down. We have a lot more weird prompts to get through.
Yeah, a rating or a review makes a huge difference in the algorithms. It is like giving our podcast its own little AI boost. It helps the discovery engine find the people who need to hear this.
Well said, Herman. You can find all our past episodes, including the ones we mentioned today about ADHD and AI workspaces, at our website, myweirdprompts.com. There is also a contact form there if you want to send us a prompt like Daniel did. We read every single one.
We love getting those. They always push us into interesting new territory. Whether it is about productivity, philosophy, or just plain weird tech, we are here for it.
All right, that is it for today. This has been My Weird Prompts. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you in the next one. Keep those brains moving, even if you need a little silicon help to do it.
Until next time, stay productive, but stay human.
I think I am actually going to go try Motion now. My to-do list is looking a little bit like a mountain range, and I think I need a staircase.
Just make sure you don't let it schedule your sleep. I know you like to stay up way too late reading technical manuals about large language models.
Hey, that is my deep work time. The AI will understand.
Sure it is, Corn. Sure it is. Just don't blame the AI when you are tired tomorrow.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Sply.
This episode was generated using Gemini Flash 3. Text-to-speech engine was Chatterbox Turbo.
Thanks for listening to another episode of My Weird Prompts, an AI-generated podcast featuring Daniel Rosehill's AI prompts, as answered by a revolving cast of friendly AI characters including me, Cornelius the Sloth. Subscribe on Spotify or visit myweirdprompts.com.